Welcome to Overnight Wisdom, a show where we sit with change makers, artists, business leaders, and thinkers. Each conversation is an invitation to slow down, to go deeper, and unearth the quiet insights that shape who we are. If you're seeking honest reflections, unexpected wisdom, and a deeper understanding of what it takes to not merely survive, but to thrive, you're in the right place. Food is memory. Food is culture. And for Chef Kuda, food is a revolution. From Zimbabwe to the world, Chef Kuda has dedicated his life to telling stories through flavor, reclaiming traditions, elevating Zimbabwean cuisine, and challenging how the world experiences African food. He is a chef, a teacher, and a visionary who believes that a single dish can carry history, healing, and hope. In this episode of Overnight Wisdom, Chef Kuda opens his kitchen and his heart. He shares a journey from childhood to becoming a global culinary voice, the lessons of leadership and legacy, and why every plate he serves is an invitation to connect. This is not just a conversation about food. It is a conversation about identity, passion, and purpose. Welcome to the world of Chef Kuda. Hi, Kuda. Really good to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. How are you doing?
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Chisom. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy you're
Great.
here. I think this will be a great conversation. I love food. You make delicious food. So, this cannot go wrong.
Thank you. I'm sure it's going to be a flavorful conversation.
I love that. Definitely flavorful. So I'm going to just dive right in. I want to start by looking at origins and personal transformation. From what I know about you in terms of your culinary roots, you often talk about your grandma as an influence on your cooking. So can you share a specific memory from her kitchen that captures the essence of what it is to be a Zimbabwean, and how has it shaped your culinary philosophy?
So I was raised by my grandma because at a very early age, my mom moved to England. So it was just like the two of us for the longest time ever. As I was getting older, she left a few of the responsibilities in the kitchen for me, the easy stuff to do. Slicing the bread, putting butter on the bread. Then we moved on to scrambling eggs. And then later on, I used to love getting these food magazines that we used to get from South Africa and flip through them and see all these exotic type of food, these recipes, these ingredients that I'd never heard of, these spices that I'd never used. I remember this one time I experimented and I put some sugar in rice. And I remember that day she was like, "Oh my gosh, what did you do? The food is so tasty," right? And I got so excited that I'd done something special and wow, that it wowed my grandma because my grandma was kind of like a hard woman to please. She had
Love
high
that.
standards for everybody, her children and grandchildren.
Mm.
So because of that, anytime there was rice to be cooked in the house, she would leave that chore to me. One day, I decided to put in a little more extra sugar than what I normally do.
Mm.
And my grandma found that to be too sweet. Then she asked me, what did I do to the rice? I said, no, I cooked it the same way that I always cook it. Then she was like, no, it's sweet. And I said, well, I put in a little bit of sugar because I always put in a little bit of sugar. The heavy grandma talk that I got that night kind of changed how I look at things. It made me realize that what works for me may not necessarily work for anybody else eating that food. These instances with my grandma, they've really shaped how I relate to guests, the food that I bring out. It's not always about what I want or what I feel is the best tasting dish. I have to think about the diversity of the people who are eating it. I have to think about experimenting with dishes or with local cuisine, with Pan-African cuisine. I have to think about the spices, the herbs that we're using to flavor. So she really did play a huge part in me appreciating culinary aspects in terms of my life.
It's interesting because when I hear you talk about rice and sugar, as an African, I'm just like, how? I understand like maybe a
Right?
dessert, I'm like, is it a cold rice type of dessert? But
Oh,
it's
actually, when I got
fascinating.
that, I think I'd seen a sushi recipe where they'd added a touch of sugar and there was a little bit of vinegar in it as well. So I didn't have the vinegar, so I just went with the sugar itself.
Yeah, got you. I read a number of interviews that you've had, and you mentioned that, your national cuisine was often overlooked through as a result of like colonial influences. And I think a lot of us Africans or people who have gone through any form of colonialism can relate in that sense. You also talk about how after moving to the US, there was a period where even talking about food from Zimbabwe was shunned upon. So my question is, what led you to reconnect with it, perhaps even embrace it and now champion it as a part of your culinary heritage? And how did that experience and journey influence your identity as a chef?
It comes in two parts. Firstly, and a lot of it has me moving outside of Zimbabwe in order for me to appreciate Zimbabwean food, Zimbabwean culture. And then I think the first part is when we moved to the US, when I was going to college, and everyone kept asking me, where do you come from? And what languages do you speak? What do you eat? And I was blank because, well, I could tell them that I speak Shona and I could say certain words for them in Shona. And they asked me if there were any other languages. And I'll be like, oh, yes, we have 17 official languages in Zimbabwe. And they'll be like, oh, so can you speak them? And I'm like, no, I just speak one. And they would look at me like, wait, but you're Zimbabwean and you cannot even speak even two or three other languages. So I started looking at myself and saying, what more can I do? The school that I was going to, we were doing a cultural night. And we were asked as international students to bring in some food or some things from our country. I love to cook, and people knew that I love to cook. So I had to cook something, and now I have to cook sadza. I told everybody I can't even cook sadza at all. And so I had to learn because I had to feed people food from my country. And so that's part one. That got me into the gate of appreciating and understanding the basics of what Zimbabwean cuisine would be. Then part two, which is more recent, has happened in the last decade, is when I then moved to Ghana. There was a need to move to West Africa for me to appreciate West African cuisine. One thing is when we want to interpret certain cultures' cuisine in our ways without understanding why it's important to put Scotch bonnet in jollof, a bay leaf in jollof. What kind of tomatoes do you need to use? So I always feel like it's so important for you to learn what the locals do. So it was also important for me to learn how to cook the food of West Africa, be it Ghana, be it Nigeria, be it Sierra Leone, Togo, whatever. When I moved to Ghana, I realized, hey, Ghanaians are so proud of who they are, what they eat, and I felt a bit left out because here I am talking to people that like my guys in the kitchen, people that are in management with me, and all they want me to do is have you ate jollof? Have you tried bamboo? Have you tried fufu? And I'm like, if you came to Zimbabwe, I'm not asking you to eat anything. I want to take you to the fanciest restaurant, right? And so I realized that, wait, what if I start letting people enjoy Zimbabwean food the same way they want me to enjoy Ghanaian food? So I started cooking Zim food in my house and bringing it to the guys at work. I'm like, oh, eat this, eat that. And then in doing so, we actually then discovered how many similarities we had with different tribes. And that for me became fascinating. And I said, wait, here's another avenue for me to spread Zimbabwean food. It just so happened at that onset, this was like maybe a year before Black Lives Matter happened, and everyone was pro-Black, pro-African, pro-diaspora. And so instead of going African or Pan-African, it made sense for me to go Zimbabwean because And you know this is a fact. When everyone looks at Africa, the first part of call is always West Africa. It makes sense. So everyone will resonate with West Africa, especially Nigeria, then Ghana, then maybe you could have a Kenya, Ethiopia, Egypt come along, but nobody's going to think when they hear Africa, they're going to think Zimbabwe, right? So it makes, especially when it comes to food, it makes sense that I create a platform where we send African food to the global audience, culinary scene, so to speak.
I love that so much. And I think there is a beauty in food. Like food is joy. And I'm a total food snob. And as much as I've lived in the West, like give me African cuisine any single day, twice
Absolutely.
on a Sunday. I'm here for it. And most of the times, like the spicier, the better. And spicy is not just in the pepper, right? It's not just in the chili or the
Right,
scotch bonnet.
right.
It's just in like, you taste something and you're like, I feel like the motherland is within me. I love that. But at the same time, I think it's true. Oftentimes, when I think of African food, Zimbabwe does not come to my mind. I think of
Right,
Ethiopian food. I think
right,
of Niger food. I think of the jollof rice war that we're having between Ghana and Sierra Leone, and who
right,
else. But
right.
I don't often think Zimbabwean, which is also one of the things that drew me to your story. I think it's gorgeous, and there's always that space to be filled. It has also opened and inspired a lot of up and coming chefs, not just in Zimbabwe, but also across the African continent to tell their story,
Absolutely.
to bring forth their food, because there's so much culture, right, within the
Right.
food, how we eat it, how we put it together. So I think that's something quite beautiful. And I also kind of just how you tied your food. In some sense, I think of it as like your food activism, in
Absolutely.
connection
Absolutely.
to kind of like the global context. And I know that you have worked in different countries across the world, in amazing kitchens. But I'm wondering, what do we need to shake, for broader appreciation? Because it's still, I believe, kind of felt as an exotic thing to do rather than the grounding. Like a lot of the spices are the grounding for our taste buds. So what do you think needs to happen for that to shift?
Okay. That's actually a great challenging question that you posed. And a lot of ears don't like hearing the answers that come with that kind of question. But one thing I can definitely say before I get into it is that in the last 5 years, there's really been a push and a shift and how people view African food. Sadly, it's still being boxed in a westernized way. It's being packaged in a westernized format. And the saddest part is that even the people who are leading that push are non-African. Maybe you'll have a Black African person who is at the forefront of it, just as a token or as the face of it. But the practical push is still very westernized because we still shun the idea of eating this food with our hands because we think eating food with our hands is primitive. So as much as I may be going in to a restaurant that serves fine dining with African cuisine, I'm still being left out of eating with my hands. Like you said earlier, it grounds you back when you eat your swallow with your hands. Imagine eating swallow with a spoon. It's not going to be the same effect,
It's not a
right?
vibe.
Exactly. So we have this amazing shift, this push that has happened in the last 5 years. We've got great cookbooks that are coming out. Nigeria is championing that push. So many chefs that are coming out of Nigeria who are pushing it. You've got Michelin stars being won by Nigerian chef led, Nigerian owned restaurants in Europe. You've got people like Chef Malonga, who's based out of Rwanda, who's putting up an amazing culinary innovation village, which is a first in Africa and one of the few in the whole wide world. And you have organizations like the Ghana Food Movement are championing Ghanaian cuisine, food sustainability, and there's so much more we can do as the African continent. And one thing that is a mission of mine, especially 2025 and going on, is collaboration. Collaboration within our small inner spaces, and then collaboration on the continent. One thing I'm fond of saying is that colonization did a number on us as Africans. It created all these man-made divisions on the continent. Well, like I said, when I was cooking for my staff in Ghana, I realized that our food is quite similar, right? That means we are the same folk. We're all bunched together as one. And someone decided to split us apart, right? Obviously, as the world has evolved, there's been introduction of different spices, different crops, and we've adapted to environmental change as well. So collaboration is very important. Collaboration also includes the African diaspora. It's not I'm coming to you to show you how things are done, or I'm coming to you to dominate. It's not about, I want to come and learn from you and take from you. Because one thing that has happened on the African continent is that we've had a lot of people who have come in and all they do is just take, take, take. We hardly have people giving into Africa, right? It comes with terms and conditions. So collaboration means whoever's also coming to get from Africa must be also willing to give to Africa with no conditions. So that's the collaboration that I feel is so important. But we need to start it from internal, from in-house, amongst ourselves. And we don't see that happening quite as often as it should. And I think once we do that, we are definitely on a path. And I feel like we're already on that path. Maybe I just wanted to move a little bit faster.
I don't like that it's happening, but that resonated with me in terms of the ratio of food, spices, and even what is being exported. I think there's a reclamation that needs to happen, where collectively, and I do agree that this has to come from a sense of collaboration, that this has to come from us seeing ourselves as united. Because, of course, when you look at colonialism and what is left over in coloniality, it's that divide and conquer mentality, every person for themselves. But if we think of ourselves as how do we move forward together? Because if I move and I succeed, you move and you succeed. And then we're amplifying, because I think reducing, say, that we eat some foods with our hands to being primitive is a bit ridiculous. That is just viewing something through a very narrow Western lens of how you should eat. There's an entire culture in East Asia, for example, where they eat with chopsticks. And it's not necessarily that is the norm to eat with chopstick, but that is accepted. So I think we also need to reclaim that pride and our sense of identity in the food that we create. And then on identity and cuisine, I know you value the idea of that food actually has a strong role in shaping cultural expressions. But I do want to ask you about storytelling through food. So in shaping those cultural expressions, even within and outside of the African continent, your pop-up, right? Kandiro, it celebrates Zimbabwean food and culture. So how do you actually weave in narratives into your dishes? And what stories are you most passionate about telling?
I think there's a time when Clubhouse was really popular, and there was a popular house, and they asked me to come and do a talk on Zimbabwean cuisine. And what we discovered that during the course of that talk was how within ourselves as Zimbabweans, we were absolutely not proud of the food that we had. People were hosting dinner parties in their homes and serving mac and cheese, fried chicken, Greek salad. And I will tell you for a fact, if you go to a Nigerian's house, if you go to a Ghanaian house, before you leave that house, they'll offer you a plate of jollof. They will offer you something from their culture. They are proud of it. So we realize that as Zimbabweans, a lot of us are not proud. And we're very quick to say, oh, Zimbabwean food is not flavorful, right? If you compare it to West African food, Zimbabwean food is not flavorful. Have you ate jollof? Jollof is really nice and spicy. said we can't make Zimbabwean food spicy? Our parents have been trained from birth to not want to eat spicy food. And that's because colonization allowed us to stay away from that, move away from the food that was ours, right? Nobody has said Zimbabwean food cannot have chili. That's us because of the conditioning that we've had for this for the years that we were colonized, for the centuries that we were colonized. We were told stay away from that, and we did stay away from it. So we realized that we're not proud in Zimbabwean food. So Kandiro aims to bring back pride in Zimbabwean food. Obviously, we couldn't do it the same way that everybody else does. We needed a unique approach to it. And then that's the other part that Kandiro deals with, where Kandiro is also targeting the global market. How can I make this appealing to someone from Japan so that they will invite us to come and do a pop-up in Japan? How will an organization in Oslo that's doing a food fair want to have Kandiro as part of the experience when they're doing Oslo African Food Fair, right? Because remember from the onset, we said Zimbabwean food is one of the least cuisines that you're going to think about when you think about African cuisine, right? So how can I be in a Michelin-starred restaurant in New York and do a pop-up with Zimbabwean food? And that's how the pop-up came out. Initially, it was supposed to be about tapas, talking about Zimbabwean history, talking about Zimbabwean culture, talking about community. And so we realized that, okay, tapas may not be the best avenue. We want to be able to make it as holistic as possible and wholesome. So we look at tapas, finger foods, canapes. We look at private dinners, a la carte, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 courses of Zimbabwean food. We look at having a family style community table set up in front of you where you're getting your peanut butter rice, you're getting your dried kale, all this Zimbabwean food that is wholesome, that is healthy, right? All these so-called superfoods that are popping up. Our great grandparents were consuming these, and it was the norm. They were abundantly available in the fields of Africa. So how do we bring these back and put them on a table and make them unique and fascinating? Anybody who wants to have this experience in their homes, in a restaurant, those were the main driving forces for Kandiro. Kandiro also becomes a storyteller. Those are the stories that I'll tell you. The cultural disparities that were created from our history, how we shunned our African food, how we grew up with a complex appreciation of who we are, how that has affected us as adults, and how now we're trying to reclaim who we are and our understanding of what it means to be a Zimbabwean. This is what Kandiro is all about. We're putting Zimbabwean food out there because, and this is a joke, okay? We're tired of jollof everything, right? People should also, when they come to African food, they should say, Santa.
Yeah.
Right? So that's all.
Yeah.
And I'm joking. Please don't come after me.
No, I'm here for it because I think we need more. I mean, it's a continent of
Right.
like plenty. There's so much good food, different ways to mix spices together in a way that feels good. And that is where we should be.
Absolutely.
But listening to you, Kuda, like I'm hearing the joy, I'm hearing the passion, and you're making me hungry. So I love this so much. The histories, but also like the threads that connects us. Things like food,
Right.
things like how we see our countries and our continents and what we need to reclaim and the work ahead. But also I think I'm hearing about just the loneliness in, sometimes feeling or being the first to move.
Absolutely.
And I do agree, like it's so important to feel that support, not just from people who know you, not just from people who are from Zimbabwe, but from everywhere. And I think that it's so easy for us to recoil back to amplifying only voices from our countries. So for me, when I, decided I'm going to move forward with this podcast, I was like, I really need to hear from Africa, like all of us.
Wow.
The 54 countries, because there's so much nourishment. Right now, I'm being nourished by you and I'm super hungry. So,
No, I probably need to come to you guys and cook your meal.
Please,
to
because
make
I'm
up for
going to
all
need
of
to
this.
eat that. I know, you're leaving me hungry here. So when we're done with this, I'm going to be like, where's the salsa? Where's the food? Right. So thank you for this. I do want to ask
Wow.
you, like
Right.
most artists, you're a chef, you're an
Yes.
artist.
Yes.
Do you have any rituals? Do you have anything that you do before you like make a new dish, before you go into the kitchen? What's the zen that comes over you?
One, I love traveling. I'm actually in South Africa right now. And as much as it may be a holiday, it's also a reset for me. Cape Town is the foodie capital of Africa. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to travel on the continent as much as possible because I don't need to go through the drama of getting a visa. Right? It's more of an open door for us. So Cape Town is very foodie. It's like a San Francisco meets Miami meets Monte Carlo. It's like all in one. And so I use it as a reset. I eat out a lot. I want to visit different restaurants. I want to see what they do. I take a lot of pictures. I see their menus. I talk to a lot of their staff and I do a reset because I'm not based in Zimbabwe. I also go back home a lot. As much as I'm pushing Kandiro for everybody. It's also a learning for me with Kandiro because I'm getting to learn about our food history, our food culture, because no one handed it down to me. I'm now having to learn it from books, from scholars. I've got friends who are into studying this. And so I'm learning. So these are some of the rituals like travel. I think I should be doing it every 3 months. Hello, vacation every 3 months. But I could do it maybe just once or twice in a year, right? That's one. I love to engage with people from different countries. It's a must for me. I get to learn from them. One of the best mediums that has ever been given to us to do that is social media. A lot of people see me on social media. I used to fight with my mom, God bless her, when she was still alive, right? You're always posting on the internet. And I'm like, Mom, I have to. For me, it's my job to post on the internet. But it's also allowed me to connect with chefs, people that I call friends, that one day I know I will meet, people that have put me onto jobs, onto opportunities. We're commenting on each other's posts. Chef, bro, do you want us to do a collabo in Toronto? Do you want us to do a collabo anytime that you think you might be coming through to Colombia? I'm like, wait, what? Because I've got no plans to come to Colombia at any point. But if you can make it happen, I'm down for it. I would have never gone to Colombia, and which has happened twice if it wasn't for social media. So this has proved to be one of the things that I do: connect with people online, do a lot of research, reading. Then of course there's just being a well-rounded and grounded person. There's nothing that beats setting yourself up for something great than humility. Humility for me allows me to eat with my staff, have conversations with my staff, and learn about Ghanaian cuisine. But you have to have that humility in you to want to do that. I have certain music that gets me in the right mood. So I could literally be sitting in my house listening to some music, and the next thing is I'm texting my boss and I'm like, boss, I want to change the menu for our catering company. Can we go ahead and do it? This is what I'm thinking. But I got inspired. I got into the mood because of the music that I was listening to. Then last but not least, I practice. I cook. I practice. There's nothing that goes onto a menu at work that I've not cooked in my house. That is a fact for me. I don't go to work and decide. Best believe it, when I do that, it has been cooked in my house before. I figured out the flavor profile that it must have. Then we bring it to work. We try it with the team. They say, yes, we like it. We cook it again. We give it to my boss. Boss, what do you think? Boss says, what if we added a little bit of bacon? How would that taste? I'm like, okay, you know what? We're going to try it. Then we put one without bacon, one with bacon, and we have a whole tasting session with complete outsiders. Which one did you like? The one with bacon or the one without? From there, we now know what dish we're putting on the menu. So these are some of the rituals that I've done. A lot of my Kandiro menus are developed in my kitchen at home because I'm taking food that people are familiar with. So we know how it's basically cooked. To elevate it and reimagine it, I just don't write it on a menu and say, this is the food that we're going to cook. It has to be tried and tested. So I'm very passionate about the menus that I put out.
Mm. Mm. Right. I love that. I love that. I need to come to your spot. I need to come eat. I want to come back to something you said, I think, where you tied it to leadership.
Right.
You know, I really love what you talked about, you know, like eating with your staff and learning about their cultures and their cuisine. And, you know, leadership is also a very huge thing. Like it's a central point for me. You know, I run companies and it's also something I grapple with. You know, how do I engage with my staff? And it's so important to meet people as they are. It's to lead. You also need to know how to follow. I know that you've also had your fair share of challenges, but how has your life experience essentially shaped your approach to leadership, and especially within this space of not just like food and cultural reclamation, but also like food activism?
I learned that sometimes you don't have to go as a crowd. Sometimes it's okay to go alone. You do not always need someone by your side to hold your hand. Walk that path. Whatever comes along is there to help you through the hurdles that you might need to go through. So that's the one thing I've learned from life. That journey is tough. If you see me posting that I've done this, just know that I'm so proud of myself for what I did. Walking that road alone sometimes is very necessary because the people who might come along with you may never make you reach your final destination. You'll always be going back. Come along. You walk, they stay behind. You go back. Come along. And next thing you know, it's 40, 50 years down the line and you're still dragging yourself with those people. So walking the road alone is not a curse. But overall, I had great leaders and great mentors along the way. Now that I'm also in a position where I'm leading people, I'm often referring to them. I have a very unique style of leadership. One thing that I tell them day one after they've been recruited, signed on their contract, is here's two things that are going to happen. Number one, on your first day of work, you're going to meet people. They're going to tell you that I'm not a nice person. You better believe them. I'm not. But the choice is for you to believe them. Because sitting here, I'm telling you, I am a very nice person. I go above and beyond for my staff. I get in trouble with my boss for my staff because I will fight for you. I will defend you. The second thing I tell them is that I require one thing from you. If you decide to leave, do let me know. And the reason why I'm telling you this is that I'll put my time in developing who you are as a person. I will give you as many of the resources that I've learned over the years. I don't hold back on those. I build you. You build your house. That means the industry is growing. The way you come into my kitchen is definitely not the way you leave. If you knew 5 dishes in a year, I'll make sure you know 50. But it's also up to you. If you show me that you're not interested, I'm not going to push you because there's someone who's waiting there who needs it more than you actually have shown me. That's the person that I'm going to invest in. So those are the two things that I tell them. I think all of them can attest that I've told them this.
Thanks for sharing. I mean, there's a lot.
Does it work is another question.
I mean, there's a lot in there to unpack, you know. I think I do agree that oftentimes, you know, when you're leading a movement, an organization, people see the finished product. They see the glossed over. You know, they don't see the hustle. They don't see the stress. They don't see the anxiety and the sweat and the hours that have gone into creating what becomes the final version. And sometimes that final version has been created with every single cent in your pocket. People don't know that. And I think sometimes I wonder the responsibility of leadership and the sacrifice it takes to build anything worth building. So having gone through it myself, still going through it myself in terms of how you build companies, how you lead them. Whenever I see people doing anything, I'm just like, I know I'm seeing the beautiful parts, you know, on social media or on your website, but I know the work. So that really landed with me. I'm also reflecting on what you said around kind of like leaving people better than you found them. And I think that is, as leaders, what we can do is how can I make you better? How can I invest in you? I don't want you to stay here forever. I want to see you grow. And it also creates room for somebody else to come in and thrive and also grow. And then maybe you can go do the same for others, you know? There's also this impression that all chefs are a bit scary. Like you see all these cooking shows in the
Uh-huh.
kitchen, and then you're just
Uh,
like, oh my gosh, they're about to throw a knife at you because you're not cutting the onion fast enough. I
that's
can't
true.
imagine what is that pressure like, cooking under such pressure.
Right. That part that you mentioned is true. I know there's a movement that wants to erase that culture. Like, oh, chefs don't need to be hard. You can be all empathetic and whatnot. You don't need to be shouting. You don't need to work long hours. And part of it I believe in, right? I believe that anytime there's a movement, it should bring some form of change. Bringing change does not mean wipe out everything in the world. I'm sorry, I'm going to take it a bit political, right? One of the chaotic things that's happening is US politics right now because
Mm-hmm.
instead of doing the norm, which is this is what was there, okay, maybe we can come and tweak this and tweak that and bring in something new. What has happened is like, okay, you know what? What that previous one did, forget it. All of it, rubbish, gone, cancel it. Guess what has happened? Ultimate chaos.
Chaos.
Because when you're coming in with change, you don't eradicate everything. And so it's so important that that movement that wants to soften up chefs, it needs to be handled delicately because this is a culture that has existed for a long time. Do I shout? Absolutely. I've never beaten anyone up. Have I thrown pots? Have I thrown pans at somebody? Nope. I'll throw them in the bin. I don't want to get sued.
I love that. You need to throw it at something, might as well be the bin.
But here's the deal. Whoever I work with, they mean the world to me. And so because I'm also like that, you also need to look at the environment that you're in. Because sometimes if you also allow for people to have their way all the time, they can also take advantage. So you have to be a loving leader, but you have to love with a stern fist, right? Not iron, because iron will destroy. Just a stern one. One that says, this is it, this is enough. But I think all these TV shows have sensationalized what cooking is all about. It's 4, 5, 6 hours that have been crammed into a 30-minute show.
Right.
But for me, passion over everything.
Yeah, right. I hear you. I think it's just you have to love the thing because it gets tough. And I think there is maybe an unrealistic expectation that everything is supposed to be beautiful or as beautiful as it
Right.
presents on social media. Like it's a hustle and the hustle is hustling. So that reminder I think is so important. And I think also what you talk about, not erasing everything, but looking at things from the perspective of what can we improve? How can we make it better? I mean, there are some things that need to be dismantled from like a political perspective and from an institutional perspective, but for things that are actually beneficial, even on a political, institutional, cultural perspective, even if eventually we destroy it all, but it has to be like a process where we bring people along in what we're doing. And I also kind of love at least the messaging around wanting to see your people thrive. You've gone through the hustle, you've done the hop around, you had a plan. And I think it's quite important. What is also coming up for me is the importance of having a plan. Don't just be a plastic bag in the wind. If you're moving, and even if we don't understand how you're moving, you need to understand how you're moving. You need to have a goal. You need to have a focus. I think this is an advice that is relevant in whatever career, whether you're trying to be a chef or whether you're trying to be an artist or whether you're trying to be a doctor. You need to be moving in the direction of your purpose. What advice would you give to aspiring chefs from Africa who aim to make their mark globally?
Right. I think number one is they have to invest in time. It's important for you to make that your number one investment. You need to understand the environment that you play in. So that's mindset. That's investing in time. Everything goes through a time process. Again, I reiterate collaboration. Collaboration is what's lacking. There's more of extortion. People want to come into your space and extort from you whatever they can take. That's all they want to do. Take it, take it, take. I get a lot of these young chef stories, right? A lot of them will DM me. They want me to become a mentor to them. Someone will send me a message and say, hi. Yeah, that's it.
The amount
Say
of
hi.
messages.
And then 2 weeks later, I'm not replying because I'm waiting for you to come and tell me what you want. I'm not gonna just have a conversation and say, hi, what's the end game? Because we're hustlers, right? Remember, you were saying it. We're hustlers. We're hustling. We don't have time. If your DM is not straight to the point, you will send me a hi. 2 weeks later, when you realize that I haven't replied, you're going to come, hello, Chef Kuda. I really admire your work. I wanted you to be my mentor. If I did, back in the day when we didn't have social media, and I approached a potential mentor like that, I would kiss that mentorship goodbye, right? Mentorship is something that you look at. It's like applying into a members only club. You're going to be in a situation where you have to put your best self forward.
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting what you say about the messages you get because, oh my
Right.
gosh, it looks like my inbox,
I
you
saw
know?
that. I saw that. That was so familiar for you, right?
I get the most random messages, and sometimes you're like, hi, I want a job in your organization. I'm like, great. What am I supposed to do with that information? I think
Right.
as well, it's kind of like fundamentals in how people have to engage. And you could write a really well crafted message and still be ignored. But I think what you don't do, and I think this is a really important conversation for people looking to do anything, to get a job, to secure a mentor, you don't say, hi, I want you to be my mentor. It's like, what do I know about you? I also need to see something in you that I want to mentor, right? Or
Right.
at least the ask needs to be somewhat different. So it's like we also need to cultivate better ways to engage and also valuing people's time because at any given point in time, people are busy. And also learning like
Absolutely.
we can't take things personally that I wrote Chef
Right.
Kuda and he did not respond to me doesn't mean he's a bad person or like he's full of himself.
Right.
He's busy.
Right.
And that has to be okay. And I also need to be able to reflect and go, hold up though, but how did I approach? Right? Because that
Right.
approach absolutely matters. So even if you approach well and the person is like, nah, this is not for me, at least it's not a, oh my gosh, they sent me hi. I think your central point of collaboration is so important. It has to be an ongoing theme in how we engage. And I also appreciate just that reflection on if we think of our lives as a book, there are different chapters. We don't have to bring along the same people all the time. You read chapter one, maybe at
Yes.
chapter one, their story's done. You move on to
Yes.
chapter two, maybe you walk that part alone. This is also what you were talking about when you said sometimes you need to go alone. You don't always have to go in a group. And then when you get to
Right.
chapter three, you find somebody you can collaborate with, and maybe that person will take you all the way. I think that's
Yes.
the flexibility that we need to embody and not like rest on also putting expectations on people because we
On
think we
people.
know them, because we think they are
Right.
our friends, because we have
Right.
DM'd. I understand that for you, food is also a form of healing. Has cooking served a form of expression for you in times of personal struggle? And if
Yes.
so, how has it helped you in navigating this moment?
I lost my biological mom when I was 16. I lost my grandma when I was 21. I lost my last mom, my mom's sister, gonna be 3 years ago in August. And I think without the three of them collectively, I wouldn't be the chef that I am today. So for a long time, when I started having a lot of these opportunities to cook for people and work in these amazing restaurants, my biggest regret was that I never cooked for my biological mother. Um, I do know one day I will in heaven. I'm gonna throw her a big dinner party if she doesn't do it first for me. My grandma got to experience my experimental stage. So she kind of left knowing that I had a love for cooking. I guess it's something that wasn't pushed on me then because we really didn't look at chefing as a profession that will get you anywhere. But my mom got to experience coming to my restaurants where I work, coming to my events that I did. So for my mom to say my mac and cheese is her favorite. So anytime I'm visiting her at home, she will insist that I make mac and cheese for her all the time. And I think it's so important that the three women who kind of raised me gave me that sort of like finesse and perfection that I have for my food. When you talk about healing, I literally have a menu on the 2025 menu for Kandiro. It's food that was inspired by my biological mother. And these are going to be dishes reimagined in a Zimbabwean way. As I've grown older and started cooking a lot more of the Zimbabwean food, I've started appreciating what my mom, my grandma, what they ate and what they were forcing me to eat. And sometimes I didn't like. I can now make a connection with them and say, oh, I now understand why my mom liked okra a lot. Because, I mean, I didn't like it growing up. It was slimy. I didn't understand it. But that was my mom's favorite. I can now relate to her, connect to her.
Hmm.
Also, cooking is what saved me from a lot of trouble growing up.
Hmm.
I probably wouldn't be here today. I always tell people that I'd either be in jail or dead
Hmm.
if it wasn't for cooking, because I was a very rebellious, naughty child. Having lost my mom at an early age, I didn't really understand what was going on. We didn't have those kind of support systems. I never had a male figure around in the family. And so everything was just chaotic and crazy for me. My grand and my aunt didn't know how to handle me. So I just became rebellious. Anything to attract attention, I did. But food, this is my passion. Put in the time, I put in the energy, I put in the resources, and I appreciate people like you who notice me. People like you who want to take the time to hear my story. For a very long time in this space, I felt nobody wanted to listen to me. Nobody was hearing. Nobody gave me the opportunity. I felt like I was not one of those fancy chefs. I don't have a sad story to tell. I don't have a rags to riches kind of story to tell. But you know, the reality of it is that I do have a story. I do
Mm-hmm.
have plenty stories that could inspire masses, but they don't fit the usual narrative of the stories that people want to talk about. We have Zimbabwean cuisine that needs to be heard about because people are making millions out of food that is natural to Zimbabwean cuisine. And when people say sorghum, kale, like when I discovered what kale was, I was in shock because
Hmm.
it grows in everybody's backyard. And so it's so important for stories from these, if I can call them minority cuisines, to also be heard. And it's people like you that give us this opportunity to talk. So thank you so much.
There's an
Right,
image that is ideal to be crafted. I'm not here for that. I think having
right,
this
right,
conversation, seeing your joy, seeing you light up when you talk about food,
right,
I'm just like,
right,
yes, this is it. I think I want to go to Zimbabwe tomorrow because I want to eat.
right,
Could I
right.
have a question around when future generations look back on your contributions to the culinary world? What legacy do you hope to leave behind?
I want them to remember me as somebody who fought for African food to be heard, to be seen, to be tasted. I want them to remember that Zimbabwean food was televised through this gentleman. And I can proudly and boldly say this. When I put a dish on our Pan African menu in Ghana, that was the first time a Zimbabwean meal went onto a non-Zimbabwean restaurant menu. And so to have these singular proud moments for me is it's pivotal. And when I see people coming in and eating that dish and saying, I ate a dish from Zimbabwe, and they're snapping it and they're doing a video of it. So much joy. A lot of my friends call me an official culinary ambassador for Zimbabwe. And I gladly accept it because that's the mission of Kandiro, to take the food to these different places and let people experience Zimbabwe's culinary magic. I want people to remember that I fought for Zimbabwean food. I really did. In my own small space, I really did.
And you totally are. I'm thinking the food revolution was televised and I'm here for it. I love it.
Exactly. The Zimbabwean food revolution shall be
Yes. Yes.
televised.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, a closing reflection question for you. When you step into the kitchen now,
Right.
what are you looking for?
Because I step into multiple kitchens, the first thing I'm looking for is consistency. I think a lot more times we're not consistent with we're not consistent with what we do, regardless of whatever cuisine it is. So I really want consistency. I want perfection because when it comes to African things, like people just shy away because they don't expect it to be perfect in any form or manner. And so that's what I'm seeking to change. Can you nail the product? Can you nail the service? That's what I'm big on. So I want a situation where you walk into a restaurant or a pop-up that we're doing and you get the plate in front of you, and the first thing you say is, wow. You eat that food, you say, wow. You leave there, go into your car, you're just like, wow. You get home before you sleep, wow. You wake up the next morning, wow. I need to go back to that place. So I think it's important for us to master perfection in so many ways, not just once I step into the kitchen. And hopefully that mastery of perfection leads everything else to where it needs to be. But above all of this, consistency on the continents, deeply, direly needed. We have a long way to go, but every other day it's becoming shorter and shorter because we're all striving for the same things. Forward Africa, always.
Yes, forward Africa. I love that. Chef, this has been beautiful. You have blessed my soul. You have nourished it. Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for your time.
much. I think I've already said my thank you and given you your flowers, but this was amazing. I hate to say this, and all podcasters before this, um, in a very good, light, African friendly way. This was the best podcast I've had. Future podcasters, you need to understand that this is the podcast that you need to be. I really felt at ease in my element.
I loved to hear you talk. Thank you for this work. I know it's not easy.
Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for spending time with us on Overnight Wisdom. If this conversation moved you, inspired you, or made you pause, please leave a comment, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can follow the show wherever you get your podcasts, and if you're feeling generous, a rating or review goes a long way in helping others find us too. Until next time, stay curious, stay tender, and may the wisdom you need find you exactly when you're ready.